Next thing I'm going to do is start cleaning up and putting these back, the ones that are ready. This one has no blockage. I'm just going to clean it with some carburetor cleaner and put it back in. I am also going to polish it as well. So first I'll just give it a little cleaning here, get out any debris that might be on here. Hit it with a paper towel. And then take a look at it beforehand. I like to keep it polished because if you could keep the surface area low, then less things will bind to it. So here's what it looks like now. This also includes polishing the inside as well. I use a Q-tip with the cotton removed to do that. This part is now finished and ready for installation. We'll give that a little tighten. Just a little nudge. That's it. We don't want to break the rubber seal. Next is this one. I don't believe this one is clogged. We're going to record it here on the camera now. We're going to clean it. We're going to see if it improves. So here it is before. Here you have after. And regardless, it is clean now, so it's going to go back in. We could see in this one, it's not plugged, but there is an obstruction here. There is some debris in the hole. So I'm going to clean this one out and clean off all this oxidization on the bottom. There we go. Now it's cleaned out. I got all the oxidization off, and now it can be put back in. Next will be this needle. So I will load on the spring and then the rubber washer. The rubber washer kind of bevels towards forward like the needle does, right? And then it will go back in to a soft seat. That's it. Flip it over. Note the position, and I'll do the 2 1/4 turns as that was the original value. So 1, 2 1/4, and I can see it matches up with the original mark that I had. This is done. There's no mistake. This is completely blocked. There's no way through here. Obviously, I could clean it, but I wanted to point out that if there was a catastrophic cause of failure here, it was this one. So I'm going to clean this one now. Let's bring it up for before. There's nothing. No way through that. Try and attack this from the other side. There it goes. Busted through. Okay, let's get a little air on it. See what we got. See what we got now. There it is. So now it's back open. I'm gonna give this proper cleaning now that it's no longer plugged. This one is repaired and cleaned. We'll put it back in. All of them are back in. We'll now put all the float and all the associated parts back in as well. I'm going to put this back on the float like this and take a look and make sure the rubber is in good condition. I think this was replaced last time as part of a kit. This is still okay, so I'm going to put that back on. I'm not going to make any adjustments to the float. There should be no need to do so unless you're actually replacing the float for whatever reason. I'm going to drop the whole thing over, putting this mechanism seating back down in the hole just like that. Get this bar under the screw, which I might need to raise just a little bit here just to fit it. There it goes. Finally, I'll just tighten it down to a acceptable tightness, seating everything in place, and just watch that the mechanical float is working properly. There is a way now that I could blow into the pipe here, and air should pass through, and as I'm blowing, I could flip this over, and the air passage would stop, and then again resume, and then stop, would show me that it's working. So long as, obviously, I don't adjust this metal tang here that will adjust the float height. That would be bad, because then we would have to do a float level procedure. The bowl is nice and clean. I've cleaned it out with carburetor cleaner, removed all of that nastiness that was down there, and I can now replace it. This seal is still good, so I'm going to reuse it. Finally, the last screw has the holder for the hose. Now that all of the screws are in, I can now use the T-bar here to secure them down. They don't have to be very tight. There we go. Next order of business will be the cleaning and inspection of this needle. We could see that there's just some dirt and debris. We want to make sure that the rubber is not damaged in any way. And I could see, looking at mine, that there's no rubber damage. It's just dirt and grime and what have you. And I'm just going to clean that up. That's all I'm going to do. Then what I do is I take just a little bit of Rem oil, just spray it on my fingers like this, and then I go around and I will get it all over the rubber here, and when it's all over it, I'll remove the excess inside and out. When we're done, this is what we're left with. This is keyed, so it can only go in one way. I will place it in. The needle inside will need guiding, however, so manually guide that so it goes into the middle of that hole down there, right? And then it drops into position. Make sure that the rubber, move this out of the way, make sure that rubber is perfectly in the middle. And then we will take our O-ring from the beginning, place it right over here. After that, we drop in the spring. Very quickly check this for debris. There's generally no debris on here, but I'll give this a quick wipe down. This is just fine. And I will put this cover back on. The O-ring sits in this direction here. So this will go around the spring. Make sure that everything seats perfectly. Hold it in place, and then pop the screws in. Let's put them in by hand. Then give the screws a tightening, not too tight, just a little snug. We give a quick test. We just push up gently. Other than that, this carburetor is now completed. We can move on to the next carburetor. What I'm going to do next is disconnect this carb from the bracket. It is similar but not the same from the other carburetor's procedure. What we're going to start with is the removal of this cotter pin again, just like the last one, to separate this linkage. So I'm going to do that now. With the cotter pin and washer removed, the linkage comes right up, it's separated. Next, I'll be using the 10 mil again on this bolt and this bolt here, pulling those out. There's actually two pieces that make up this bracket on this side. So the first thing to do is actually remove these. Note the top bolt I just removed has the thin spacer in between. The bottom bolt has a thick spacer in between. Put the spacers with the bolts. At this point, the bracket can be put off to the side. Pretty much the same as the other carburetor, except this one has the idle set screw on this side. What I'm going to do is rebuild this carburetor, addressing only nuances between the two. On this one, the holding bracket for the choke cable is on this top cover here. So it sits on this side. Completely dismantled and ready for cleaning. We'll take a moment now to look at the components. The first one is a little dirty, but there's no buildup inside. Everything is fine, and we can see through all of the machined holes on this. So this one would have been okay. Just needs to be cleaned up. This is absolutely fine. Just going to clean it up. No issues. This one, just like the last, sat really low in the bowl. There's green oxidization formed on it, and we could see a little bit of crud buildup forming inside of there. That'll be cleaned out. This would not have caused a severe failure of the bike, but should definitely be addressed. This one, though not easy to see on the camera because of the size, looks to me to be slightly closed. Like there's a little bit of dirt in there that formed around the circumference. And I think that would benefit from cleaning, would open up a bit wider, but this would not have caused a catastrophic failure. And exactly like the last carburetor, the same exact jet is plugged up. If I put it through really bright light, I can almost see a silhouette through there, but there's no way that any gas is getting through this. This would have caused the carburetor to completely fail and stop the motorcycle from working. So I'm just going to do a complete cleaning and reassembly of this carburetor now. This carburetor is now complete. We are ready to assemble both carbs onto the frame, but first, we're going to clean the frame right quick because there are some air passages and some ports that make their way down to here. We just want to make sure that everything is cleaned out. We're going to blow it out right quick. So there's an air passageway that goes from this hose here. It goes out here to here. We can see this Y connection form, and then it makes its way down to here. And I just want to make sure that there's no crud in here. A lot of times you turn this upside down. When you're taking out the carbs, you'll notice that a lot of gasoline leaks out of here. It all seems to pool up in there. So I'm going to spray some carb cleaner in here, let it work its way out, and that should be sufficient. As long as it's coming out of here, it's not plugged. That's all there is to it. Then blow it out with a little air. Now I'll reassemble this. Make sure that this rubber grommet here seats into that when you do it. Also, the throttle linkage can be locked in at that time as well. Just like I did here. Just seat it like that. There's nothing holding this together. I just pushed it in. While holding this in place, and I recommend around here where this Y meets is where you should hold pressure to hold everything in place. You have this bracket now, and this bracket fits in this area. There's a lot of slack, there's a lot of gap here, right? And that is so we can get the screw with the spacers in. And the bottom one has the big spacer. So I'm going to slide this in position like so. Bottom one is easier to do first. I've got the spacer on the bolt. I'm just going to, it's hard to show here. Stick the spacer in between those two and then get the bolt through both of them to secure it in place. And I'm going to hand tighten that just to get somewhat secure. You see what I'm doing here, right? Doesn't have to be fully tight, just to hold it in place. And now, for the top, I'll let that rest. I'll take the other bolt and get that washer off of there. It's actually a spacer. And I will place that spacer in here, just like this, right? Drop this bolt through, and I'll hand tighten this one into position. And with that, we have this reconnected to the bracket. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to tighten them. And then I'm going to put the washer and cotter pin back on this throttle linkage here. And yes, I really do need new cotter pins, but I found it. The bracket is now restored for this side of the carburetor. We'll now merge the other side of the carburetor to this unit. Two gaskets. We have this small rubber one here and this one over here. We want the throttle linkage to seat when we do this as well. We could hold them all together and then put the bolts through. There's no spacers on this side. We want the linkage pointed down like this, right? So we line everything up. We got this one in, the back big one, the front one, and that kind of sets up everything. And then I bring the linkage forward on the bottom. You can see me bringing it forward with my finger, sort of get that roughly in a position. Then I could seat it properly, just like that. Now I'll press everything together. Make sure everything's fitting nice, and it is. And with that, I could now take the bolts and tie everything together. Now I will get the washer and the cotter pin and put it through the throttle linkage. With that, both the linkages are back together. Everything is complete. I should be able to test it now. And everything's working just fine. We can see from the harness here that 2 wires will go to this side. 1 and 2, and then one wire goes to this side. This metal tab lifts up to hold the cables for this side. Last order of business, I'm going to flip around. This is the enricher linkage, and I'm going to push it down into the other enricher, and it locks into place. And now both enrichers are synchronized, and that piece is now finished. I restore this last hose, and the dual carb rebuild is now complete. I hope you found this video of the Yamaha VSTAR 1100 dual carburetor rebuild useful. Before putting these carbs back in, always consider other maintenance items that you could conduct on the bike, as it's really easy with all of that room there. Thanks for watching.